Hello everyone. In this video we're going to be talking about the noseband and the progression that we have in regards to the noseband and getting there, as well as just kind of like our thoughts on it and the reason why we use it. So if you were to bring me your dog, or let's say a rescue dog, a dog that I don't have a relationship with, I'm going to be working with that dog on a slip lead. I'm going to be moving through life with them on the slip lead, teaching them things on the slip lead, whether that's the Jentle method, recall, ask and release, bed, or people call it place. And they're going to be probably dragging that slip lead around, so that wearing the leash in the house, etc., etc. We don't jump to using the noseband until we have a relationship with the dog, until there's more harmony with the dog, until they understand more of who we are, we understand who they are, how hard they hit on the lead, how sensitive they are, and also giving them a snapshot of who we are, how we feel, the environments that we move through, live in, etc., etc. Workshops are slightly different. So in the sense that people will show up to the workshop and maybe they haven't ever used the noseband, but we'll go ahead and give it a try with those people if they have a relationship with the dog. If it's a dog that's like new to them, then we'll just ask them to work in the slip lead, and maybe they'll get the first day under their belt, and then day two maybe we'll broach the noseband, or maybe it's day three. But if you, let's say if myself or Cole needed to handle your dog and they had the noseband on, we may try to get some work done there, loosen the jar a little bit. But we have been known to remove the noseband if the dog is struggling when we're handling it, or even when the human whose dog it is handling it. So like, we're really not looking for the dog to put up a fight for very long in the noseband. If we do our job correctly on in the slip lead, the noseband should be a non-issue. And we just, if the noseband is consistently an issue, then there's more trust that needs to be built in the relationship without that tool on. Like we know plenty of trainers who have dogs that their dog still goes for the noseband. Entering a trigger, the dog goes for the noseband. And so, without reading too much into it, you could just imagine putting yourself in the position of the animal. So normally you have all this mobility to move around and look at this and smell this and react to this, And when you put that noseband on, it's much more challenging, and even to a degree restricted, depending on how the dog is being handled and that tool is being used. And so if you have an insecure dog or an adolescent dog and you put the noseband on, you're taking a lot away from them, which could render them frustrated or even more insecure. And so that's why we really just like to emphasize that going slow is very beneficial. So for example, I just adopted a dog, and for the first 3 weeks I did not use the noseband. First time I used the noseband was at the workshop, so I could show people how I use it, how I went about it with a dog that's never worn it before. And Before we even start moving around in the noseband, we do hundreds of repetitions of ask and release on it to desensitize and acclimate the dog to that sensation of the pressure on their muzzle and whatnot, fabric. And because we're not looking for a rodeo, we're not looking to put so much undue pressure on the dog that they don't enjoy that tool. Again, if we do our job correctly, the dog should just walk into a slip lead when they see it open. Or when you go to put the noseband on, they just stand there and they accept that. If it's a situation where we have to rush to get the noseband on because of fear of being bitten or because the dog's going to be all fussy, then in our eyes, you have no reason to put it on. Yeah, it might make your life a little easier, but the dog is not ready for it. And sure, you may get it on and your life may be easier because the dog is much more easily maintained and controlled. But there's a step missing there, and it'll come out at some point. So let's just say you've taken it slow, you've conditioned the noseband, and 90% of the time your dog is fine. But maybe you go to a barbecue or you pass a house where a dog is reacting on the other side of a fence, or maybe you pass a human and your dog reacts, and their immediate response is to go for the noseband. Well, number one, you kind of have a troubled dog there. And for us, that is our cue that there's more work to be done without that pressure around, without those triggers around. Meaning there's more pressure that you can put on and ask of the dog without those things around. There's more refinement that you can ask, more things that you can kind of poke at in terms of their sensitivities. So if for example, your dog is triggered by going to a farmer's market, right? And they go for the noseband periodically while you're at a farmer's market. Of course, there's those triggers, like whatever they may be. To me, it doesn't really matter what they are. What matters is that you're not synced up with the dog. There's things that you're missing in terms of what you could be asking of them without that tool on. Because again, with that tool on, they don't have the ability to look at this and look at that and so on and so forth. So you could do a lot of good work in the slip lead at a farmer's market by still allowing the dog to look, and maybe they do react, but then you work through that. But the noseband is just too much. So there's more work you can do without being in that environment on the slip lead and then on the noseband as well. You can push your dog more to where the amount of pressure, the amount of pressure that you're putting on without those triggers or the environment being a pressure is applicable. Maybe it's duration, maybe it's the potency of your practice. Maybe you're missing things here and there. Maybe your dog's just has too much freedom normally, and then when you go to a farmer's market, you're kind of keeping them more close for obvious reasons. But you could practice keeping them close on the noseband as you're moving through your home, as you're moving through places where you know they're not necessarily going to be triggered, but really utilizing the noseband in moments where you know your dog's it's not going to send them over the edge. Getting them more familiar with that tool, more or less. Well, let's just say that happens consistently and you're putting in time here and there. I just wouldn't go to the farmer's market, or I wouldn't go here, I wouldn't go there with the noseband on if your dog's going to fight it. For us, we'd rather have a little bit more work to do in terms of managing the dog on a slip lead than putting that much pressure on a dog with the added environment pressure and the noseband pressure kind of coming to a head. So, in other words, going backwards is going to help you go forwards. Yeah, it's just the amount of control that you gain with the noseband, the amount of leverage that you have with the noseband is really extraordinary. And it shows because when you use it with dogs who are troubled, you can move through life with them more easily. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you should do that with where they're at in their development and with where you're at with them in your relationship. So a lot of people are really quick to get that noseband on because of the amount of leverage that it gives them and the effortlessness that it allots them moving through life, minus those blow-ups that they may have here and there. But very rarely is it a situation where a dog is hitting on the noseband consistently for like 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and we're just doing step one, that we won't just be like, this is too much for the dog. There's been countless times where we've done that in a workshop where it's day one, somebody shows up with their dog, we try the noseband and it's just too much, and we're like, let's just go ahead and take it off. Let the dog get acclimated to the environment, the sights, the smells, the sounds, and everything, and then we'll go ahead and touch back on the noseband maybe the next day or later in the day or so on and so forth. But again, with my personal dog that I just adopted, I've had him for about a month, and I've worked with him on it for about a total of 6 hours. So it's not something that we jump to, but it is something that we always get to because of when you have that amount of leverage, when you have that amount of control, psychologically what it does to the dog is if it really stirs up their stuff. If they've got some stuff in there, it'll stir it up, because they won't want to relinquish control because of their insecurities of this. They're wanting to hit on prey in the environment or enter whatever you will. And so by just utilizing that tool and the amount of leverage that it has on their face and gaining their attention, right? Maintaining their attention and guiding their attention in such a crisp way and potent way. If your dog has some issues, you're probably going to find it in the noseband. And maybe they accept it right off the bat. And then a cat runs by and that's when they go for it. And so like, okay, when you hit on a cat or when a cat's in the environment, you really get lost. How lost? Depends on how much they fight the noseband. How adamant are they about getting that thing off? It's no different than dogs that we've worked with in the past who've had to wear a muzzle. They show up wearing a muzzle to work with us, and unfortunately, the dogs haven't been conditioned to the muzzle to the best degree, and so and in this example, I'm saying like the dog wants to eat me more or less, take some bites out of me, kill me, whatever. And so they're going for the noseband. They're going for the muzzle to get it off so that they can get at me. And so it's just obviously in that situation, the dog's pretty troubled. And so it's kind of similar with the noseband, where it's just like there's more work that can be done by the human to acclimate the animal to the muzzle or acclimate the dog to the noseband. And for us, just first and foremost, is more time spent building connection and moving through life and exposing them on something that's not so restricting to them and confining to them, like a muzzle or like a noseband. So it's really important, to realize that when you are using that tool, how much leverage you have, and then what are you doing with that leverage, right? So let's just say it gives you, it's giving you all of this ability to move through life. Then you have to take into consideration what is the animal that you have attached to you. So yes, they may be moving through life more effortlessly with you because of the noseband, but they're really struggling inside. How do you know that? Well, are they putting on the brakes? All of the things that we talk about in the book, and in other OTO things, like how fluidly is the dog moving with you? Are they moving as fluidly with you as they did when there weren't 20 people around, or when there wasn't a deer that they just saw? And so those things are very important to take into consideration as you're using the tool, because it's not just about moving through life more effortlessly. It's about using the tool, the noseband or the slip lead or the gentle method and the exercises to get the dog back to you if they get lost, and or to just maintain the connection, period. It's not about moving through life more effortlessly for us. It's about the relationship. It's about maintaining connection with the dog. And so realizing that if you take lots of control with the noseband, what are you doing with that? How much are you pushing the dog and into their insecurities? Are you pushing them up to the edge of their fears and then pushing them over the edge? Or are you pushing them up to the edge and working there a little bit, finding some more harmony and some connection and whatever, and then raising the bar a little bit and then finding more connection there? It's almost like you move to the edge of their fears, not pushing them off. You work there, and then as you work and the dog gets more comfortable, the edge extends out, and then you are able to walk to the next edge. And then as you work and as they find more harmony and connection with you, the ledge grows, and then you're able to move farther out, so on and so forth. So the noseband, it's something that is so potent for the way that it gives us so much more control and the ability to use that leverage with timing. So if a dog looks, let's say you have just the slip lead on, and the dog looks off to the right at some trigger, and you go to bump them, you're really not getting their attention as efficiently as you possibly could as if you had the noseband on. Because if you bump them, you're bumping their neck, and hopefully you get the head. Eventually you'll get the head, depending on how sharp you bump them or whatever your communication is. Or even if you had like a prong collar on, right? Or enter whatever it may be. Maybe it's a shock collar, or maybe it's food, right? So they're looking off to the right. You bump them with the prong collar, the slip lead, or you shock them with the shock collar, or you try to lure them with food. You're not getting their attention as quickly as you could with that noseband on. Because the way that's designed is that when you put pressure on, immediately that pressure is closing and bringing the dog's head around. It's immediate. As opposed to if you're using a prong collar, you're just getting the neck, and hopefully eventually you'll get the head, right? And then if you shock a dog, hopefully you've trained them to go neutral, because if you just shock a dog, they could go whichever way. Their body could spin around and contort and this and that. So that tool is, You don't really know where they're going to go in that point. And then with food, if you're luring them, unless you get their food, the food right into their nose and bring their head around, then your timing's going to be off. And even then, you could bring the food to their nose, and you could start bringing it over, and then they leave the food and look back at the other thing. So in all of these different scenarios, there's lag in time. There's a lag in response, potentially. And so, which is one reason why we choose to work with dogs in the noseband, is because it's pretty much immediate. When you apply that bump, when you apply that pressure, when you apply that ask, it's immediate. You're going to get that head to come around, right? So that's one reason why, for us, we use the noseband, because timing is very important. You know, when we're walking with a dog and they go to hit on a trigger, we say leave it and maybe bump them with that. We want that period of time between the ask of leave it, for example, and the response that we're looking from the dog to be as close together as possible. So those are just some things regarding the noseband. And to continue the progression, so we'll work with the dog, we'll get them comfortable, build the relationship, lots of connection on the slip lead, build the general foundation of the Jentle method there. Then we put the noseband on, and we do all the work over again in that. And then from there, we take we go back to a slip lead, and that's kind of where the dog lives at that point, on the slip lead. And then we go from there to working on recall on a slip lead, and then a long line, and then the dog's off lead. So that's the progression for us. But we just wanted to highlight the fact of how potent the slip lead is, and how we're just very conscientious of when we use it and how we use it. And we're not looking to use a lot of pressure with the slip lead. If we're having to use a lot of pressure with the slip lead, we're doing something wrong. The whole point of working with dogs the way that we do is to get them light. So if you've got a heavy dog and you're having to use a lot of pressure and a heavy feel, you could say, in guiding the dog through life, you're probably asking too much of them. And or you could probably be taking some angles to dislodge the tension in their physiology and how locked up they are. But you can check out the OTO videos covering that stuff. So I hope that's helpful. I hope that's insightful. Thank you.